Welcome to Spirit's Journey, coming to you live on Truth Frequency Radio and simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio. Your hosts are Patrick and Kathryn Andries.
Join us each week as we explore a wide range of metaphysical topics such as dreams, astrology, intuitive readings, and life purpose. You'll receive practical guidance so that you can live your most awesome life.
Learn more about what we do at intuitiveschool.com and connect with us on Facebook at Spirit's Journey Radio. Welcome to Spirit's Journey, coming to you on Truth Frequency Radio and simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio. You can also find us on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live, among others. We're here in the Heartland, holding the energy for spiritual truth and awareness. I'm Patrick.
And I'm Kathryn. Welcome, everybody. We are excited today to have a little different perspective with our guest today, Kathleen Beaning, who we've known for many years. I met her in one of my classes. So let me tell you a little about Kathleen. She is a visionary, metaphysical artist who receives divine guidance. Intuitively, this information that she gets is transformed into a beautiful painting. She lets go of the outcome and allows her to trust in the divine power. She is intuitive, and artistic insights emerge as she sees through the eyes of spirit. These visions bring in peace, clarity, and understanding. Kathleen does these inspired divinely guided paintings which focus on what your guides are wanting you to know in this present moment. Confirmations will be conveyed to you. So welcome, Kathleen.
Hi, Kathleen.
Hello, Patrick and Kathryn. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we are so excited to have you after having known you for so many years and watched your amazing painting skills evolved, which, by the way, do check out her amazing artwork at Intuitive Artistic Insights with Spirit. We'll say that various times throughout the show today. But Kathleen, let's start by you telling the audience like your background as a realistic artist, because that's where you started out as realistic, right?
Yes, that's true. I would say that way back when I was in 8th grade, I got into watercolor. My neighbor across the street kind of helped me along in that area, and I really found that I had a flair for it. I went into high school, majored, get all the art classes that I could take, and on into college. I have a Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree in drawing and painting. I would say back then, most of my paintings had to do with barns, stormy skies, landscapes, and mainly my media was watercolor, although I did work in charcoal and oil paint, but I preferred the watercolor, the fluidity of the watercolor.
Awesome. Okay.
Now, I have seen some of your stuff. You had this amazing Native American, I don't know if he was a chief, but did you do like a whole series of Native Americans? I remember you showing me a couple.
Yeah, I was actually taking a pastel class in Palatine, which is a neighboring city from where I lived. And I wanted to, in taking that class, is to draw some portraits, which is something I avoided in college. I would just leave a blank face and hands. And so I wanted to make sure at least I learned how to do those two things in this class. And I was kind of drawn to the Native Americans, the skin color and, you know, the hair and some of their clothing I was drawn to for some reason. And I was really taken with this particular photograph that I was looking at. It was just a tintype brown, it wasn't even in color, photograph of Sitting Bull. So he's a pretty famous Indian. And what I noticed was, it was actually my first experience with painting intuitively, but I didn't even know it at the time. I was working on the hair, and I was so excited that it was really turning out. And then I really wanted to get into that buckskin, but I didn't know exactly how to do it. And my teacher just says, well, you got to do a little of this beige color and then kind of make it look dirty. And I thought, how am I going to do that? So I was working on the hair, and I tried to get the black off my fingers, but then when I was rubbing it into this tan color, it was making that buckskin color. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
And It was like I had this inner guidance guiding me along the way and not even realizing that what was actually happening. So that was actually letting go of what my instructor was telling me to do and just being guided to follow my inner guidance to tell me where to go with it. And it turned out perfectly, I thought.
And I think that happens to a lot of people where they're being guided all the time. I mean, in reality, we're always being guided. And I think what happens is just at different times we actually decide to tune in. But I think the guidance is always there and we're not even realizing it.
Yes. I think you can find this picture on a website for
Yeah, so
Kathleen.
I was getting ready to mention that, and actually, we're going to try a little bit something interactive, and we're going to experiment. So hopefully, this works out for you. And if you don't have access to a computer or your phone, no worries. And because we're going to describe basically everything, but if you want to go to Kathleen, KATHLEEN spiritsjourneyradio.com. Again, that's Kathleen.spiritsjourneyradio.com. And so you sent us some pictures, and this is actually the first one, right?
Yes.
And so the lighthouse is the one everybody should be looking at.
The lighthouse is this Michigan lighthouse that is a real place. I traveled to Michigan with my family and took a picture of it, and the grass that was in front of the lighthouse was actually taken from a crabgrass flyer about getting rid of your crabgrass in your lawn. It was very complicated because the blades of grass are crisscrossing over each other. It felt like I was working a jigsaw puzzle, but I liked the detail of it. But on the other hand, it felt like I was closing in. I wanted to be free of it, and that's when I thought maybe I should try something new.
So how long would it take to do something like that? Because I know there's probably a lot of people who are either aspiring artists or maybe even experienced artists who would like to take their craft to the next level. So there's a lot of detail in there that I can see with the crisscrossing grass. About how long did that take you, and what advice might you give somebody wanting to be able to really...
Well, actually, in doing that grass, I had taken a class in Wisconsin with a watercolorist, and her first name is Bridget. I can't remember her last name offhand, but she was teaching a technique called negative space, and that's where you don't actually, let's say that you paint the background green, and then you paint the space around that shape. So you might have dark around a blade of grass or a shadow. So you're painting the shadow on either side, and then that piece of grass will just show up. So that's the theory of working with that grass that's in front of the lighthouse, is all this negative space, letting lighter shades come forward and darker shades go back. And that is actually a technique that you can learn. You can look it up on, I'm sure the internet has it, or if you want to contact me, I can actually give you some ideas of how to get started in that.
So how would that technique? So how would people contact you directly then?
You can contact me through my website. It goes directly to my email at artisticinsightswithspirit.com. That would probably be the best way to get in touch with me.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So that's artistic.
And any questions you have, I can address that in an email as well. Or if you want to call me, you can give me your phone number and I can give you a call back.
All right. So again, that is artisticinsightswithspirit.com, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and Kathleen's artwork also can be seen in the book that I wrote, The Dream Doctor. So, of course, that was the first children's book that I wrote, and the first person that came to my mind for the drawings was Kathleen, and I called her up after many years of, not being in touch. I said, Kathleen, you want to do some illustrations for a book? And we had so much fun working on that together. And she does just amazing detail work with that. I think she captured everything that I wanted in those illustrations. So if you want a taste of her artwork, you can see it inside the Dream Doctor.
All right.
Thank you,
So
Kathleen.
one of the reasons that you're here is because you made this huge transition from being a typical realistic artist into being what you had termed as being an intuitive artist. So can you share, how did that transition happen?
Well, this would be like shortly after my husband passed away. And I was wondering, what can I do to move forward? And I ended up thumbing through a continuing ed book. I thought to myself, I need to take a class, something I need to do now that I'm kind of on my own. And I came across this class. It was called Discover Your Life Purpose. And I thought, oh my gosh, is this class meant for me or what? So it covered 5 different areas of study. And well, the areas all led me to focusing on what my life purpose was to be. And that was to be that I overall, after taking all the tests and the questionnaires in each area, that Kathryn had this class, that I was to be doing something of a spiritual nature with my paintings that would bring healing into people's lives and help them to move forward. And I thought, wow, this is like kind of an overwhelming task, but I was up for it. My experience with the realism is like taking baby steps, one step at a time. Don't be overwhelmed with where you're going and how perfect or what it's going to look like in the end, but baby steps to lead you to another area of learning, and pretty soon you'll have the picture that maybe you weren't expecting, but probably better than you were expecting.
Yes, and the Discover Your Life Purpose class, which is where we met. I know a lot of people know that's one of the courses we teach through Intuitive School, but Kathleen went through astrology, numerology, palmistry, iris analysis, past lives, and family birth order. And so the idea is when we see ourselves from all these different angles, from all these different intuitive sciences, like Kathleen did, we put together the big question about, where should I be focusing my energies? And so it was such an amazing story how that helped you blend your metaphysical with the realism that you already had in the painting.
Well, shortly after that class, once I had my mission in mind, I thought, okay, now what? So I ended up taking an intuition class. And that actually helped me realize how the intuition actually works. After the class was over, I remember asking Patrick, the intuition goes where it wants to go, and so does watercolor. In fact, people want to control watercolor, and that's why they say it's so hard to work with. But if you let it go, it's like you'd be surprised how pictures can maybe even turn out better than the way you plan. So that's what I had to learn, to get myself out of my own way, to let go of outcome, and just trust that whatever is going to be on the paper would be. And Patrick said, yeah, why don't you just try it, go for it. And I said, okay. Thanks,
Awesome.
Patrick, for that.
You're welcome.
So
and I was just thinking, I just was always so excited and intrigued to see your growth and transition in this whole process. And it was just really exciting. You'd come back and you kind of share different developments and things as they were coming along. And you actually gave us another sample here. So the second sample that you gave us, you might describe this for people who maybe don't have a screen in front of them or something like that. But this
Sure.
is an example of your intuitive transition, right?
Correct. This one, in order to get myself out of my own way, I decided I had to set everything aside that I knew without bringing any of my knowledge or, knowing that in what classes I took in college to say, you have to have the dark colors in the background, you have to have the light in the foreground. I had to set that all aside So the only way to do that, I decided to blindfold myself. So in blindfolding myself, I had a whole palette of all the different colors. I had paper that I pre-wet in front of me. And I just kind of randomly chose colors and put them on the paper. Sometimes I did more with the feeling, turning the paper or a different direction, feeling the edges with my hands to make sure it was on the paper still. And when it was over, when I had worked on it, I think it was about 30 minutes that I worked on that painting. It was like a 12 by 18 sheet of paper that I was working on, so it wasn't too big. And when I took the blindfold off, I turned it in different directions just to see if there was anything that came forth or if I noticed if it looked like anything. But interestingly, out of all the colors on my palette, the colors that were randomly chosen, mind you, were only in oranges and reds and some yellows. I thought, wow, how is that possible? Because the colors were mixed up. But I looked at it vertically first, and it looked kind of like a jack-in-the-box. So that's how it got its name. The name of the painting is called Long Neck Jack, like it kind of like a wobbly head on the top. But in turning the paper sideways, I noticed that it had two hearts. I was looking at it the other day, and it was kind of a big heart, kind of in the middle of the painting, the lower part of the picture, and two little hearts under it. I just noticed a third heart just when I was sending the picture to Patrick. So I thought, wow. But initially, I just saw the big heart and the little heart, and I thought, wow, there must be something to this kind of painting. It made me want to explore it further.
Well, and that's the amazing thing about Kathleen's paintings is if you look at them long enough, different things begin to emerge from the paper, like figures that you wouldn't notice if you just glanced at it. And that to me was so powerful.
Now, if you don't happen to have a screen, this particular painting reminds me of like a cloudy day at sunset or sunrise, because it's all these oranges and reds and yellows, and it looks like the clouds in the sky they're just lit on fire with the sunset. And so you can imagine just sitting up in like a cloudy sky, just kind of looking up. And I'm sure we've all probably done that at some point or another, tried to imagine the different things that we see in the clouds. And yeah, I can clearly see the hearts in there.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
you worked on paintings a lot just for yourself. And then you began to start painting for other people. So do you kind of want to talk about either your approach to this new form of painting or how you transitioned into then doing artwork for others?
Okay. Well, first of all, like I mentioned before, I had to learn to trust, let go, and allow. And what that meant was if something showed up, like let's say a tree in the sky or a horse in the sky, I had to leave it there. It's like, wow, that doesn't even make sense. What would a horse be doing in the sky? So it's like, okay, that was a lesson in just letting things be. If the horse wanted to be there, that's okay. And I just had to trust. So I didn't really get messages early on. The whole thing is that I was just to paint and see what was going to be coming forth. I remember I was doing this one painting. I worked on the chakras. So I figured that would be working on the different colors in each chakra as a basis for the painting. And when I started with the first chakra, the base chakra having to be in the reds, and it turned out to be kind of like it was called lava rocks. And it was like red rocks and a lot of oranges. And I thought to myself, I'm going to make it more spiritual because I know purple is a spiritual color. And I'm sure that'll make it look even better. So I did that, but in doing so, it helped me to know the difference between, was it really intuitive, or was it my ego telling me that purple is a spiritual color and that would be better? Like my intuition was not really quite good enough. I had to trust on maybe something from my knowledge, from my learning over the years of what colors meant. So I learned the difference between what does ego sound like and what is my higher guidance saying. And that has been a major lesson throughout my whole journey in working with this intuitive painting. Am I getting myself in there, or am I letting the spirit actually tell me what is supposed to be there?
So that's actually something that I think a lot of people wrestle with, is, telling the difference between our ego mind and what our conscious physical mind is trying to tell us, and what our deeper spiritual intuitive mind is telling us. So what insights or wisdom, can you share about how to discern the difference between the two?
Well, that took a lot of trial and error. And I decided that I was pretty accustomed to using a pendulum or using muscle testing, what is called muscle testing. So I would use that as a guidance because it would give me a right and a yes or no answer for. I would always be asking questions. Should I do this? Should I not do this? Or do I need to keep my eyes closed? So what happened was I wasn't getting any, by looking at the paper, I wasn't able to actually figure out, what should be on the paper. So in asking my inner guidance, I closed my eyes and I could see like an image behind my closed eyelids. Just a shape or a line, or it could be a shadow. And it's kind of like a memory game. I had to trust, and that's that you're using your intuition, your guidance of how can you replicate that shape that you saw behind your eyes, your eyelids, and then put it on the paper. And then I would ask, what color do I use? So I would use my pendulum and touch the colors. Should I use this red first? And I would test it, and it would say yes or no. How about the blue one? Or the purple, or whatever color that I put my finger on. Sometimes it would give me 3 colors to use for a painting, and sometimes it might give me 5. I thought, well, I don't like that one color. Maybe can I switch it? Now that's the ego. When you get yourself in your way of the painting, rather than what you have that inner guidance telling you, no, these are the colors that are supposed to be in the painting. And trust them and just work with them one at a time. And it's taken me several years, I would say, to really get that down to where I can really feel that this is my higher guidance talking to me, rather than my ego self or my education self or what other people tell me. Like, I want to have, like, maybe, could you put a tree in my picture? I'm really drawn to trees. Well, no, the guidance I'm getting is that you're supposed to have a flower here, not a tree. So the flower has a message for you, and the tree is maybe meant for you at another time.
I love it because it's kind of like art for you. For somebody else, it could be dance, it could be gymnastics, whatever it is like a tool for us to like a prop to move through life, to help us understand the intuition. And your tool just happens to be art, but anybody else could be using a different tool. And you have really, I think, found this amazing way to use things in the physical world, your gifts and talents, to get closer in touch with the real self, which I think is the meaning of life. What we're all supposed to do is really get in tune with that inner self.
Right. And, I was just thinking too, if, let's say, if a flower shows up in a painting, or maybe a star, let's take a star, for example, might be the focus of a intuitive painting. And what a star means for one person, perhaps there's 5 points on the star. It could mean that you have 5 different choices to do something. And there's no wrong way to where to start. You can do work on all of them at the same time, or you can work on one thing at a time. And or a star could be that it's telling you that there's like, if you look at the star, there's like V shapes that are put together to make the star. So maybe the V shapes are telling you to be open, open up to greater things, and maybe be more open in the 5 areas that you're focusing on in your life. It just depends on what's going on, or the intuitive message that I would get referring to that client that I'm doing a painting for.
Wow, that's great. And I love it that basically, it means that you can learn intuition just like we learn anything else, like learning how to play basketball or learning how to play the piano. It just takes time and practice. So we are going to be entering a short break, and we will be right back. And if you did not get logged in, you can see her samples of artwork at Kathleen.spiritsjourneyradio.com. Again, that's Kathleen.spiritsjourneyradio.com. And you can view the artwork as we describe it. And you are listening to Spirit's Journey on Truth Frequency Radio, being simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio with Patrick and Kathryn Andries. We will see you on the other side. We are back from the break. If you are just joining us, this is Spirit's Journey with Patrick and Kathryn Andries, coming to you live on Truth Frequency Radio, also being simulcast on Oneness Talk Radio, among many others. And we are here today with Kathleen Beaning. So just in case you have not had a chance to log in to see her artwork, you can go to spiritsjourneyradio.com. And so I'm looking here at sample number 3 that you gave us, and this is a very expressive Native American. It's got really great colors and energy to it and expression. And so this looks very realistic. So how does this Native American, how did this tie in with your intuitive development again?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I was avoiding doing faces. I wanted to actually learn and take the time to really study the structure of the face and actually do it in a medium pastels, which allows you to make it look like an oil painting, but you can actually smear it and blend it so the colors blend together like a watercolor. It led me into another phase of my intuitive painting, and there's a painting you can look at on the site. It's number 4, called Spirit Mountain. It's a green and blue. It looks like a cliff with a lot of faces in it. And interestingly, it's kind of like when you look at clouds in the sky and you see faces. But when I put the paint on the paper, it's like these faces just emerged from the paper, and all I did was just add a little bit of dark around it, or to bring it out. The shadows were already there, and I just made it a little bit darker, so the faces were almost emerging from the paper. So that was pretty interesting.
And you know what that reminds me of, Kathleen? It reminded me of the idea that we have spirit guides around us all the time, but we don't even notice them. And it's kind of like your paintings. If you don't look at them closely enough with a calm mind, you can miss these amazing faces that emerge.
That's right. It's very interesting about those faces because they have a purpose. They are coming to you like a guide to help you with whatever is going on in your life, and you can talk to them, and it's a visual image to remind you that they're there to help you and support you. I noticed that when I would be wanting to, in my next step of, maybe doing painting for other people, what would that be like? And I thought to myself, okay, in order to, I have to connect to their energy. So the first thing I did was held their hands and kind of felt like the mercury moving up a thermometer until I felt like that connection. And interestingly, after I completed the painting with them and doing several, I found that I was really getting tired. And what I noticed is that I wasn't really clearing their energy out of me before I could proceed into the next painting. So I actually learned a technique of clearing the energy between the people, and that helped me start fresh with each person. But in starting a painting for other people, I first of all had to make sure that I had covered myself with a pure white light. I would go into a meditation to make sure that my guides and their guides, I would give them what they needed to know that would help them to move forward. All positive messages if I needed to say something to them. And that was all about trust. You know, sometimes I would think, oh, I don't know if I should say that to a person. It doesn't seem like they're going to go for that. And someone once told me if I didn't say it and tell them what message I was getting, that they needed to hear it, go find it from somebody else. So I was actually holding them back. And interestingly, I would share that with people. I said, well, this is just what's coming to me. And they would say, oh my gosh, I was waiting for you were the one I needed to hear. I was waiting for a confirmation. And thank you so much. I finally know that this is what I need to do. So I thought, okay. That was another confirmation for me. But as I mentioned, I had to close my eyes and I would ask for a shape or a line, and I would memorize it, ask for the color, put it on the paper, and then I would get a message. It was like almost like I was forming a puzzle. So the first layer of the puzzle would be a shape, like maybe some horizontal lines and maybe a curved line that meant something. But as the painting developed, maybe the curved line became a leaf shape, and that meant something else. So it was like building layers upon layers. So I would be, if a person was sitting with me, I would be giving them that information as I'm painting. However, I also have found out over time that I didn't have to connect with a person by holding their hands, and they're not always available, especially if I was going to do something at a distance. So I found that I could do that as well. And working at a distance, all that I needed from them is their name, their address, whether it be an email address or their physical address, and their birth date. It's kind of like showing me their license that says who they are. If they gave me somebody else's information, it would be all about them. So I can do a painting. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be present to get a painting from me. And as far as the messages, you have the opportunity of either, if you live in the United States, I can give you a phone call and I can give you my insights that I received over the phone, or I can write out a document that will give you the meanings of the colors and message that I got from the shapes or forms that were created. And maybe there might be even a face or two that would show up, and that would be a guide helping you to work on something that you are maybe unaware of, and something, it gives you the opportunity to try something new.
So when somebody is receiving one of these paintings that you've done, how does that arrive? I'm curious about that.
What do you mean?
Oh, so how do you send it to them? Do you just send it through the mail? Does it come rolled up in one of those little things?
Okay.
Or?
So let's say I do a painting at a distance and the person wants a message. I can send a small picture online to have them look at it so they can see kind of a preview of what it would look like when I actually send it to them. Or I can actually send them the painting with the insights. The ordering information is actually on my website if you're interested in obtaining a painting like that. for pricing. So I can send you the insights typed out and written up if you prefer that, or I can actually talk to you on the phone too, but I wouldn't be writing it out. It would be probably a shorter, some key points, but not as in much detail as the written.
And I know,
And
for some people receiving it at a distance, they can't wrap their minds around, well, how can she read my energy if I'm in Alaska and she's in Chicago or something? And, it's the same thing that we experience when we do our intuitive readings for people a little distance. They're like, how can you tap into my energy? And like you, we just need the person's full, complete birth name to tap into their energy. So when we go beyond the conscious mind, anything is possible. Distance is not a factor.
right, I use their birth date because I knew a girl once that had the same name that I did. My maiden name is Kathy White, and I met somebody in Wisconsin with the same name. So I figured, oh, okay, well, if we had different birth dates and maybe different addresses, that would even zero it in even more. So far, it seems to be working out that way. And then if they give me their email, if I have other insights, maybe after the painting is done, I could type them in and send them a message, in their email to say, oh, by the way, this message just came through and I wanted to share it with you. So that's the advantage of giving me their email.
So one way I like to describe the difference between the intuitive mind and the conscious mind is that the conscious mind is really more local. So it's more like the attention is focused in a particular time and place, whereas the intuitive mind is more global. So really you can span with your consciousness anytime to the past or the future. You can go any location, and that's really a place where we're all connected. So a lot of people have talked about the collective consciousness and things like that. So I think that all leads to this intuitive mind that we're talking about. Now, I did want to talk about this sample number 5 that you gave us, because it's full of these brilliant colors. And so can you describe, you have a comment here that you're really stepping out of your comfort zone with this. So how did this really help you transform on your journey? And who is the figure in that picture?
Actually, that picture, it started out by me just putting colors on the paper. It was titled Archangel Michael. So Archangel Michael is generally found in colors of blue, but this is like Archangel Michael was telling me that it was a universal angel. So it's there for everybody, no matter what color they are, no matter where they live. It's like a universal angel. So it shows a little bit of every little bit of color. And being an angel, I don't know, I had the insight to add some other materials to that particular painting. I put a feather, a real feather from a bird, a very colorful bird, kind of like in the parrot family. And I put this little tiny feather and I glued it right in the middle of the heart chakra, or it could be the solar plexus, of this yellow feather. That was one. I've also thought, well, I'm going to explore some other things about what other things can I add to a painting. Not just having watercolor, but adding other mediums. Perhaps like I tried to do a painting with leaves. It was called Frozen Pond, and actually that gave other openings to try maybe something with hot glue. I made a stencil with hot glue and laid it over a picture of watercolor and then painted around it. And it gave kind of a stencil look. And so people were taken with that, as well as maybe rice paper, or even using like colored pencil over a wash of a watercolor background, and then maybe finishing it in colored pencil. So you can actually do anything. If you're led to maybe use pastels over a watercolor painting, or maybe ink, you can combine. There's no right or wrong. You could use anything. And you just, whatever the sky's the limit, so to speak, and don't try to box yourself in to just doing watercolor or just doing pencil. Feel free to explore other areas, or maybe you're doing a pencil drawing and you think, you know what, I'm feeling that maybe pink needs to be put in this area around these hearts, or maybe over in this area I need to add some blue. So do it. Just trust that that's something that is coming to you from your higher guidance, and you just lay that in and trust that it's going to be perfect. Let it go.
Yeah, that's the message, I think, because the intuition is not always logical. We get these messages and we're like, what? You want me to do what? So it is a big trust thing. And so when Patrick and I got married, 17, 18 years ago, Kathleen gave us this beautiful angel picture, which we still have hanging in our bedroom. And so I know that you use angel cards a lot when you do your intuitive paintings. And I wondered, how do you use these cards in conjunction with your paintings?
Interesting you should say that. I almost forgot. And using other materials, I thought, okay, angel cards, people are drawn to angel cards or other kind of messages that they can pick, like one a day, to find out, like, oh, I'm going to really focus on that quality. Angel cards can give messages, and I thought, well, I think maybe by putting an angel card under my painting, I would have the client, if they were with me, pick a card at random, and we wouldn't look at it, and I would just stick it under the painting, and that energy from that angel and the message that that angel had to share with that person would be perfect. After the painting was done, I would give messages about the painting to them, and then take the painting and the card, and I would look at the card, and then I would get messages from that angel to share with them. And they all, of course, in a deck, it has a little guidebook too that you can look at. Interestingly, the message in the guidebook was very similar to what the painting was all about. So it's like, I thought to myself, wow, this is so synchronistic. So that was how I started using these angel cards, and then it led me to using some other kind of cards too. So there were lots of choices, a lot of different ways to include the angel cards. And then the person would sometimes even take the message that the angel card offered so they could kind of copy it down. They were sometimes taking notes while I was talking. And, or they would say, I have that deck at home, I'm going to have to look that card up. So that seemed to work out.
So I'm looking at sample number 6 here, and it looks like your style took a change here. You've switched to a much more abstract look, a lot of large shapes with a lot of kind of lines that look like flowing rivers of energy. So can you describe how your intuitive painting continued to evolve here?
Yeah, I noticed that even from going way back when I was doing the paintings with the faces, there would be like a cliff. There would be something you could recognize. Something from my realistic background came into my intuitive work. They were used as like little tools to kind of express in the only way I knew possible that people could understand would be to use a realistic image. But also shapes and lines also could speak to you as well, like a circle. A circle could mean completion, or maybe a broken circle in a painting would be something hasn't yet been completed, or maybe it's something like it's leaving you a door or an opening to express, and you're not to be caught in the circle. You can actually leave and explore something else. So it's leaving you an opening or a way out. So there's lines. The lines give you direction. Sometimes I notice when a line comes in at a diagonal from a corner of the painting, it means that there's something going to be unexpected. So an unexpected change, something you're maybe you wouldn't think about. It's new information. So lines can mean show direction and unexpected happenings. It could be, keep your eye focused, or be on that road, where you have two parallel lines. Maybe focusing your energy upward, looking up which would be focusing on your guides and rather than in what they're saying rather than what you think you ought to do. So it just depends on the person and how these lines and shapes are used.
So
you can actually, even enjoy the painting just for what it is and get your own messages. You can ask your guides, what does this mean for me, or why am I drawn to this painting? And just sit with it, and you might even focus on one part of the painting and say, what does this mean? Why am I drawn to this area? So trust that the information that you're getting from your higher guidance or God is telling you what you need to know.
So in this particular sample, was this actually done for somebody? And those things you're describing, did the person relate to those things?
I believe that painting was meant more for a universal painting. It was meant for everybody. So a painting actually, although it's meant for one person, it could be doing a painting for one person, but that painting can be used for many people because we're all in this collective. We all might have similar things that are going on in our lives, and you think, oh, I really understand that painting. I can identify with that. What this message says in the painting, it's drawing me in. So you might find that where it's connected to many people, even though it was meant initially for one person.
Yeah, I love that, to just look at the painting and see what it says to you, because it's interesting when we do group reading sessions, maybe with 4 or 5 people, we always tell everybody, when you hear other people's readings, you're going to glean some information that probably applies to you. Likewise with artwork, right. Even though if one picture is done specifically for a person, I'm sure there's things and messages in that other people could relate to too. It's kind of universal, I think.
That is really true, because I'll find that if I have a home party and let's say a lot of people are getting their paintings done. I've been at places where I'd be sitting around a big dining room table and there'd be like 8 people there, and they all want to hear what that one painting I'm talking to one person. But I said, you know what? It's okay that you don't feel like you're eavesdropping on the painting, because you are meant to hear this as well, because a lot of these messages that are said in this painting are meant for everybody here at this table.
Oh, I love that. Yes. And so, Kathleen, have you done anything, gone back to your original watercolors, and have you done anything with them?
Yes. Actually, I have taken some of my watercolors and made them into greeting cards. In fact, I've got most of my original watercolors. There's a few that I have sold, or I've even taken some of my paintings and auctioned them off for worthy causes in my area. I have also, on my website, I have some laminated cards from my originals and greeting cards with the intuitive messages. I've made prints from my artwork that are also available for sale.
That's an amazing idea, because you just can't find cards at your local Dollar Tree that are anything near what your artwork on those cards is. So
even having I found that I was actually guided to do these laminated cards, and because people will say, okay, if I have my painting, what if it gets wet? Then it's going to be wrecked, it's going to be ruined. Don't ever feel that way, because whatever changes occur on the watercolor paper are supposed to happen, and maybe you'll be getting new messages. It becomes a new painting for you.
Oh, that's fascinating.
I love that.
But with the laminated cards, I thought, well, sometimes people are looking for a bookmark for their book, that they're reading. This would be a good bookmark, and they could prop it up, put it on their desk, turn it over, have the intuitive message show on one side about the painting, or just enjoy the painting on the front. So it's washable, waterproof, protection, and won't ruin the painting,
That's
with
awesome.
water.
That's awesome. So what are some other ways that you have applied this artwork and shared it with people? Are there other ways besides these intuitive art readings that you described?
other than having like these home parties that I have had, one-on-one, or like a group gathering. I did have a session one time where I gave explanation to a group of like maybe 20 people at a store in a neighboring suburb. And I actually tuned into the energy of the people that were present. This would be like a group painting rather than an individual painting. And just whatever people were feeling, I said I just wanted to include that energy into the painting. So I've done that, and I would give like an intuitive message for the group. Now, in addition to that, I've taken that same process, and I've worked with a musician, and this musician actually invited me to come to a theater where he was going to be performing some music. And I was going to be doing a painting to one of his pieces. And the people in the audience had the opportunity to have seen me actually do a painting on a screen. So it was like a painting in motion. It was projected on a screen that they could watch me paint as the music was being played. And
that's awesome.
I was listening to the music, and that was guiding me to do the painting. So the musician, his name is John Hegner, and he created this piece called Always. And he said this is this piece that he felt was like one of his first intuitive musical pieces, and the words just kind of flowed and came to him. And I thought, okay, so I'm doing this painting, and when the painting was complete, it showed like a sun and a field, and it actually, interestingly, the field looked like a piano. I was like, I didn't even notice that till probably a year later that somebody actually pointed out to me. And it just showed how the tree was connected to the sun, and the sun, it was symbolic of our source energy. And the rocks were connected. Everything was interconnected. So the name of my painting, to go with his song, Always, is called We Are Always Connected. So I was working with this musician, and now coming up now in May or so, or whenever we're able to get out, it's planned that I'm going to be going to his house, and we're going to be doing basically the same thing, working with a group of there, and explain what I do, and he'll explain what he does and how we're going to work together. And I can see this working out and bringing it out to a larger group of people, maybe in a church or in another gathering at different places throughout the city. So it's like trying to find ways to expand, to bring this out to more people is our goal.
All right. So you can reach Kathleen Beaning at artisticinsightswithspirit.com. This has been Spirit's Journey, and we love having you with us. So please connect with us on Facebook at Spirit's Journey Radio. Be sure to like our page. And I'm Patrick Andries.
And I'm Catherine. Have an awesome week. Get out your paintbrush and go create something beautiful.
Goodbye for now.